Hello. Currently, we are looking at an article. NBC News. Nearly half of China's major cities are sinking, researchers say. The authors of the paper published by the journal Science found that 45% of China's urban land was sinking faster than 3 millimeters per year. Singapore. Nearly half of China's major cities are suffering moderate to severe levels of subsidence, putting millions of people at risk of flooding. That's land subsidence. USGS.gov. More than 80% of known land subsidence in the US is a consequence of groundwater use and is often overlooked environmental consequences of our land and water use practices. Land subsidence is a gradual settling or sudden sinking of the Earth's surface due to removal or displacement of subsurface Earth materials. The principal causes include aquifer system, compaction associated with groundwater withdrawals, drainage of organic soils, underground mining, natural compaction or collapse, such as with sinkholes or thawing permafrost. Let's go back. The authors of the paper, published by journal Science, found that 45% of China's urban land was sinking faster than 3 millimeters per year. Now, with land subsidence, with the way that the land is layered, especially over an aquifer, you drain it down to the point that the dome collapses. It could be 3 millimeter, 3 millimeter, 3 millimeter or more every year, but then one year it'll be 120 millimeter because of a huge cave-in, something, salt dome, name it. That's what happens. Oil is tectonic plate lubricant, and we're taking all that out of the ground. There are some areas where it's injected back into the hole as concrete, and not looking great. I don't think there's a way to recover from this when you have most of your coastal cities flooded permanently. They have flood zones, and it's growing, as we're going to look further into this article. Also, when water cools and heats up and cools again, it expands, contracts. So all that in the groundwater, in the soil, expanding, contraction, you can actually hear that, the acoustic level of the soil. It would give off an acoustic pattern. So what happens then? When you stop hearing the pattern, you're risking it tightening up. You're risking the land breaking. I'll read again. The authors of the paper, published by the journal Science, found that 45% of China's urban land was sinking faster than 3 millimeters per year, with 16% at more than 10 millimeter per year, driven not only by declining water tables, but also the sheer weight of the built environment. So never has there been a time in history where there's been more building weight than people weight. That's something to look into. Probably already has been looked into, but I haven't seen just the amount of weight these buildings. You see China built buildings all across the coastline too. For what? GDP? I don't know what else. Is just put people to work and just keep building, even though these buildings aren't capable of hosting anybody. It's been like that for a long time. But still, 10 millimeter per year, 16% of their biggest cities, major cities. It says major, so I don't know what they mean by major cities, capital cities, or with China's urban population already in excess of 900 million people, even a small portion of subsidizing land in China could therefore translate into a substantial threat to urban life. Subsidence already costs China more than 7.5 billion yuan, or 1.04 billion USD in annual losses. Ten millimeter is like 0.4, not 40 inch. Nearly a quarter of coastal land could actually be lower than sea levels, putting hundreds of millions of people at an even greater risk of inundation. Really brings home that this is for China a national problem and not a problem in just one or two places. I remember years ago when they were blowing dams and creating more dams and trying to control the river systems as the flooding was getting out of control. They just moved the water around, but as they move the water around, it also will find its way into the busted up, broken down water salt domes and find their way in there. And that amount of weight, water coming in that fast, you start seeing the ground crack and cave in. Sinkholes, you would call them, but it's just, you have the dome here. Let's say it's just the very top of the dome collapses inwards. It's taking all that with it and it's going to continue until it reaches its peak taper, and then it's just going to collapse into its own footprint. You see it a lot of the time in geology with volcanoes and mountains that collapse into their own footprint. It would look similar to that, except probably land all around it, and then it just won't. The northern city of Tianjin, home to more than 15 million people, was identified as one of the worst hit. Last year, 3,000 residents were evacuated after a sudden geological disaster that investigators blamed on water depletion as well as the construction of geothermal wells. Many of China's old coal districts have also suffered a result of overmining, with authorities often forced to inject concrete into the crumbling shafts to reinforce land. I was just talking about that. Wow. Yeah. Injecting concrete into the crumbling shafts, the old mine shafts, to reinforce land. How desperate is it that you resort to these tactics? Zhu tests China's disaster response. It's muted just in case. Just make sure this doesn't affect my stream. Just, this video that could be played on television or something like that before this. Gotta be careful with streaming video on your stream. You never know. No. The problem is not limited to China. A separate study published in February said about 2.4 million square miles of land across the globe was at risk. Among the worst hit countries is Indonesia, with large parts of its the capital, Jakarta, now below sea level. So it's sinking China, sinking Indonesia, sinking Asia. Nichols said vulnerable cities could learn lessons from Tokyo, which sank by about 16 feet until it banned groundwater extraction in the 1970s. Subsidence mitigation should be looked at very seriously, but you can't stop all of it, so you are talking about adaptation and building dikes, he added. Of the 44 major coastal cities suffering from the problem, 30 were in Asia, according to a 2022 Singapore study. It is a problem of urbanization and population growth, larger population density, more water extracted, and more subsidence, said Matt Way, a geophysics expert at the University of Rhode Island. Now, most times that I seem to... It's no coincidence that every time I seem to always look at news happening in China, that it's usually about flooding, city flooding. It's happening 45% of their major cities. Nearly half of China's major cities are ankle deep. 10 millimeters. You're talking about a few inches there. That's no joke. Your car would behave very much so in a different way. Just a few inches of water, especially, you can't drive out of it. The way they're describing it is that it's so widespread that people are trying to adapt, but how do you adapt to... It's just like happening in Dubai as well. The new lake in Dubai. Did a little bit of a video on that where I went through some videos regarding how bad it's getting. Or good. I don't know, Saudi Arabia showing green grass. Happens, especially after the amount of rain they've been getting. Plus, you can't stop grass. Grass grows everywhere. Grass gets blown everywhere. Grass is everywhere. Possible. Birds and bugs and the like all take it and eat it and process it elsewhere. Grass is everywhere. Seeing a lot of people that had a lot of problem with grass, different kind of grasses, crabgrass, you name it. Whenever I used to mow lawns, people really pinpoint a part of their lawn that they hate and they want it destroyed. Unless they brown it down or just take it out, take it out by the root. It usually was something that had planted there before, and it not being a native species, it probably didn't succeed, or however, but it's just bizarre that somebody would pay $75 to cut something out of their yard they don't want. Like, I tried everything on it and nothing's worked, so I need somebody to cut it out. Oh, what was it? I don't remember what it was. That's sad. Anyway, back to this. Close that out. California cracks down on water pumping. The ground is collapsing. Farm region near Tulare Lake has been put on probation as overpumping of water has caused faster sinking of ground. Wow, who could have thought of this happening? Perforating the land. Even after 2 back-to-back wet years, California's water wars are far from over. On Tuesday, state water officials took an unprecedented step to intervene in the destructive pumping of depleted groundwater in the state's sprawling agricultural heartland. The decision puts a farming region known as Tulare Lake groundwater subbasin, which includes roughly 837 square miles in the rural San Joaquin Valley, on probation in accordance with a sustainable groundwater use law passed a decade ago. Large water users will face fees and state oversight of their pumping. Eesh. The move, which water officials reassured farmers would be lifted if local agencies progress on developing stronger sustainability plans to mitigate issues, is the first of its kind, but has been years in the making. Overpumping of groundwater in this region has caused the land to collapse faster than almost any other area in the country. In some places, sinking more than a foot every year. Okay, we were just talking about sinking cities in China. Now we're talking about, I didn't know this article was going to go about sinking cities in California. But they were talking about like inches in China, and like major cities, half of major cities. But California, talking about feet, that is like Japan before the 70s. They were sinking several feet until they stopped the overpumping their groundwater. It is hindsight, because people have been protesting this for as long as I can remember. Water warriors, water protectors. It kills the local forest around it as you drain the aquifer, as the roots have grown for years into that aquifer to tap it. Now, whenever these roots have to go find more water, and they will find water, the roots will grow and they will find water. There's way too much evidence of double-blind tests that shows roots will always find water. They will go the right way, and they will enter in a tunnel, they will enter in a pipe just to get at that water. They are living beings. This cannot be disputed. But when you drain an entire area of trees, the reason why you don't want to declare them as living species is because it's genocide. It's, you drain everything that area needs to survive, and then it sinks, and it sinks some more, and then it just becomes dry. It follows. Such plans are required under California's 2014 Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, the landmark 2014 law that required local agencies to come up with their own long-term strategies to curb over-extraction and empowers the state to supervise and enforce them. Probation is a compulsory step to set lagging local agencies back on track to achieve sustainable goals that must be met by 2040. The Tulare Lake Subbasin is one of 6 the state has put up for possible probation due to inadequate plans, all in the San Joaquin Valley, the powerhouse of California's more than $50 billion agricultural industry. The crackdown here has been met with a strong backlash. The decision followed a 9-hour hearing on Tuesday where farmers protested the economic toll it would take on the industry. They cast the expected fees on their pumping as a devastating blow to the work they do and their ability to do it in the future. We all know there are several major farms that have filed bankruptcy in the last several months. It's dire. Doug Freitas, a third-generation farmer with 700 acres of land in the basin, said at Tuesday's hearings, "I believe thousands of family farms and people who depend on groundwater will be displaced and homeless if we don't take action on these excessive costs," he added. Meanwhile, the decision was urged by clean water and environmental advocates who have called for more to be done to rein in dangerous overuse of groundwater. One moment. I will take that call later. Meanwhile, the decision, I see where the sensitivity is, but they have to remind themselves they are farming on a lake that they pump down. As we watch farmers fighting amongst each other, the ground is collapsing underneath their feet. That's pretty dire for sure. Tensions were on full display during the hearing as multi-generational farming families, dairy owners, and representatives of local water agencies spoke at length, pushing the board to delay probation. One local elected official, Doug Verboon, a Kings County supervisor who urged the state to act, said he threatened for his position. "It's difficult to stand up here because I have people behind me that wish I would just shut the hell up," he said. The board, meanwhile, framed its position as softly as possible throughout the hearing, reminding triggered attendees that probation is temporary, but according to the law, if the groups across the San Joaquin Valley don't make adequate progress within a year, further pumping restrictions could be put in place. For now, landowners will have to install and pay for meters that show how much they're pumping, as well as fees for groundwater use. During probation, pumpers will be charged a base fee of $300 for each well each year, plus $20 per acre of water extracted. Per acre foot of water extracted. $20. An acre of foot is a measurement used for large amounts of water, this sounds like a scam, equal to roughly the amount of water needed to cover an acre of land in a foot of water. How are you measuring how much water can be covering a field when you're taking it out through a tube? This is a scam. And I can see a scam here. So they're measuring it in the way that you would lay out the water flat across the field. You're taking it out through an injection site, through pumps, tubes, hoses. So wow, this is a lot. An acre foot. It's not gallonage. They're not. It doesn't seem like these companies that are large have to use the same meters. Acre foot is a measurement used for large amounts of water, equal to roughly the amount of water needed to cover an acre of land in a foot of water. So they have a formula to make an area a permanently flooded zone, a wetland. This is strange. I find it strange, but it's probably more commonly used in California, I imagine. An acre foot. That strange, baffling way of measuring water extracted. And how do you suppose? So you have here. You have here. When you take all this water here, the ground sinks. But it doesn't sink equal places. It's not just one giant dome. You know, it's soil, it's groundwater, it's water table, it's well water, it's different ways of extracting water. But if they're saying that okay, you have a 3,000 gallon tank, okay, and you're looking to fill that. You have all the permits, you know what to do, where to go, but they're charging I can't even write. It's so ridiculous. Go back to that. An acre foot. So you're not charged by per gallon like you would imagine, like everybody else is charged. So your 3,000 gallon water tank is filled up and you're charged by the acre foot in the completely imaginable, theoretical, how much of this water it would take to flood an area of land by a foot of water. This just seems like a scam. Then you take all that water, drain it, it breaks it down. The ground begins to crack and begins to collapse, but it's not evenly distributed. Acre foot. Okay, the rest is more city, county stuff and blah. I had a third thing. What was my third thing that I had? It was sinking cities in China. 3D printed skin reveals microplastic absorption. That's it. Okay. Start with this is the highlights in the abstract of the study. This is referenced in the article. Assessment of human dermal absorption of flame retardant additives and polyethylene and polypropylene microplastics using 3D human skin equivalent models. This sounds like a breaking experiment. Exposure via skin contact with MPs containing PBDEs contributes to their body burdens. Microplastics is what is MP, and PBDE is polybrominated diphenyl ether. Let's see. We breathe in polymer in the air, microplastics. It's all around us in what we drink, bottles we drink, plastic bottles, even if it's not, it's probably stored and transported in a plastic container. You can't escape it. Without great change sweeping across the globe, no one is going to be able to escape this. So here's the article. Toxic chemicals in everyday products enter the human body via touch. That is a bad headline. Let's see if the article is any better. Toxic chemicals designed to prevent household objects from catching fire can be rapidly absorbed into the bloodstream via the skin. These flame retardant chemicals, such as polybrominated diphenyl ethers, PBDEs, are found on many everyday items, ranging from furniture to fabrics to plastics and electronics. According to a new paper in the journal Environment International, these potential cancer-causing chemicals can be absorbed through the skin from microplastics in as little as 24 hours, entering the bloodstream. PBDEs are used in a vast range of products, including rugs, computers, furniture, foam padding, wire insulation, and upholstery. Exposure to PBDEs has been linked to several health issues, including thyroid hormone disruption, neurodevelopment delays in children, and cancer. They may be contained in microplastics that shear off these materials. Microplastics are minuscule chunks of plastic less than 5 millimeters or 0.2 inches long, and are found in our drinking water, in the air, and even inside our bodies. In the paper, the researchers describe how they used a 3D printed skin model to test how fast these toxic chemicals could be absorbed from microplastics, and found they can be taken into the bloodstream in as little as 24 hours. They found that up to 8% of PBDEs on the microplastics were absorbed into the skin, and 0.1% of that amount had entered the bloodstream after 24 hours. Oh. They also found that sweatier skin absorbed more of the chemicals than drier skin. Now it does say sweatier, so it's not just moisture. It's pores. We confirmed for the first time that human exposure via skin contact with microplastics containing PBDEs contributes to the human body burdens of these toxic chemicals. Study co-author, yeah. That's the same. Ovocaroni. Ovacaroni. Abafi, an environmental chemist and exposure scientist at Brunel University London, said in a statement. Ovocaroni. Well, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like the stream, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out immensely. I'll be back with another stream shortly regarding the 4th global coral bleaching event taking place. This is all for today, for this stream. Thank you for watching. Take care.